The roots of Gold-Faded Family are in the manuscript collection MSS 084, housed at History, Colorado. J.J. Brown was an owner of the Ibex Mining Company, husband to unsinkable Margaret Molly Brown, and father to son Lawrence and daughter Helen. While his gold discovery was epic, family was integral to his arc. When does a photograph reveal a relationship?
And if you're a workaholic dad who loves mining with every fiber of his being, and your son has basically gone to this school, this school, this school, this school, trying to figure out his way, where do you take your son? Where do you take your son that's floundering, right?
To the mine.
To the mine. You take him to the place that made you. So this camping trip was in about 1904, and he takes his son to Leadville. Now, Lawrence is used to teacups and, so here he is, he's going to go with his dad. And you say, well, gee, Jody, how do you know that? Because of the MSS 084 collection, I literally made a timeline from every year from basically 1880 until 1932. And this is the I just brought this just for fun, because I know the museum loves to see these things. This is the 1904 timeline I put together of events that happened in the Browns in order to write the book. And I pinpointed this to the summer of 1904, when JJ is trying to say to his son, shape up or ship out. And so his son and he go to the Leadville Mountains. And so how does that become part of a story? With a lot of facts, I could say, oh, he went on a camping trip. Now, keeping in mind JJ's with the Ibex Mining Company writing him the checks. To introduce Lawrence to the company he might someday join, in the summer of 1904, JJ took his son to a place that he adored and where he had become a man, Leadville. In mining camps, men made lifetime bonds by eating bacon and stale bread side by side. JJ hoped to experience that same kind of bonding with his son. Now, you saw the pictures, right? Lawrence dressed in a tie, just like his father, and donned a felt hat. JJ couldn't be entirely casual, so he tucked his tie into his bib overalls and wore an engineer's cap, similar to the working men who drove the Midland train. He wore heavy gloves when holding the horse's reins because his hands hadn't been tough and calloused in years. The pair rode horses and burros rented from John Condon's livery stable to JJ's mining camp just outside Leadville in Evans Gulch. Bred for work with sure footing on scree and rock, the animals carried a week's worth of supplies. JJ decided against Lawrence returning to Pennsylvania Military College in September. Instead, he enrolled him at the prestigious Phillips Academy in New Hampshire. The rigorous school was a precursor to an Ivy League education. So when you go through these 14 boxes, there's actually receipts from John Condon's livery stable. There are receipts from the florist in Leadville for American Beauty roses. So in this vast collection, you can actually, if you want to know the cost of things, so what did they spend for American Beauty roses, And what did they spend to rent horses? If you have the tenacity to go through 14 boxes that Rachel is now going to have Shelby or somebody or Amy reorganize, you can find those receipts. And how cool is that, to hold a receipt that somebody paid some form of dollars for in the collection. But without that, without touching, without holding, without doing that, I could say, they went on horses, they liked horses. I think it's more of a story, right? I think there's more of a story to it than that. So questions about data, facts?
Did it work? Did Lawrence, he didn't ever join the mine, did he?
He ends up trying to be his dad. Does he do well in school? Never. It's not his gig. It's not his gig. He just doesn't have it. JJ ends up hiring tutors because it doesn't go well there either. And you know what's super cool is, so then I went down this other rabbit hole where I contacted the Pennsylvania Military Academy, and they actually had his class pictures before he flunked out, which is super cool because I think is it in the book? I think it's in the book. There's a picture of him. I think the class picture is in there. I'd have to go back and read the book. What? Is it there? His Pennsylvania Military College? Yeah. So you end up calling all these libraries and say, hey, by the way, do you have the yearbook from 1904 laying around that we can see if Lawrence Brown's picture is in there? Ironically enough, they sent me his class rank from after the camping trip. He goes to Pennsylvania Military College, and his class rank, I want to say, was 29 out of 30. Yeah, so you're a disappointed dad. Even though he didn't have a huge education, right? He had been to school until he was 15. So he doesn't have some incredible Ivy League education, but by gosh, we want our son to be educated. And Lawrence is like, you know what? I just want to join the fraternities. I just want to have fun. Get me on the train with all the other guys and I'll have a good time. But you don't get that. I didn't know any of that until I walked in here. And then you start reading all these pieces of paper and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just into the story, something fierce.